Hey everyone, Pete Calandra here. I have a project I'm working on now that's going to have to go on TV in about a week, and I only had about 15 or 16 days to finish this project. I had to get a lot of music written really quickly, and one of the first things I do before any project is to create a template. I'm not the kind of person that believes in having one template that's 800 tracks. I've seen people on YouTube have these huge templates. If that's the way that their workflow is best served, I think that there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I like to create a template for every project that is unique to that project that will serve the sonic and musical needs of that project. And the reason I do that is I have goals that need to be achieved by whatever I'm doing musically, and they need to be achieved in an efficient amount of time. Typically, when you're working on film and television projects, you have deadlines that have to be met. So, what do I need? I need to have something that loads in very quickly, something that is easy for me to visually see where all the tracks are so that I'm not busy scrolling up and down. I need to have a very quick and efficient way to create stems. I need to have a very quick and efficient way to solo different sections. I need to have a really quick and efficient way to add new tracks if the opportunity or the need arises. So let's say, for example, I don't have an alto flute in my flute section and I want to add an alto flute. How can I quickly do that? I've come up with a solution and it works for me, and it might not work completely for you, but maybe some of you can take some of these techniques and apply it in your own ways. And one of the things that I use to help me is that I make every track in my session, except for the tracks I'm using to create the stems with, inactive and hidden, so that when I open up my DAW to write, and I write in Pro Tools, you can certainly do this in both Logic and Cubase, I just see the edit window and the click track, and I can add tracks as I need. So let's say I'm working with a harp. I can just compose with the harp, and then I want to add flute. I just add the flute. Takes 2 seconds to do, very quick, and I'm seeing that on the edit page, and I'm not running around scrolling up and down, wasting time. If you like this video, give a thumbs up. For more content, please subscribe, and to be notified, ring that bell. Please leave any comments or questions down below. Thanks so much for watching, and let's get right into it. Here we are at the Pro Tools dashboard, and I've got my template right here, and I'm going to create this, and I'm going to use the same name, just put V2 here. Boom, that's how fast the template opens up, literally 5 seconds. A couple of things. We've got, as I've said in the intro, our blank edit page or edit window with just a click track here, but let's take a look at the toolbar. And you'll see that I've got this set up with my sub counter here and my main counter up here. And what I've done is I've moved my start point so that I'm starting at 1 hour. And then all this stuff can be adjusted, but it gives me a little pre-roll in case there's a 2-pop at the beginning of the film. I can just set that up 2 seconds before my starting point here. I can change my tempo, and then I'm off to go. The way I've got this set up, and you can do some of this work with track folders, routing folders, and stuff like that, but I actually prefer this way for this particular project that I'm working on. I've zoomed in on the tracks window here, and this is where I look. It's easy for me to read because it's a white background with black letters. Very easy for me to read when it's set up like this, which is how I'm looking at it. So we go down, I've got my winds, a winds VCA, I've got brass, a brass VCA, I've got orchestral drums, orchestral cymbals, Glock, pitched percussion VCA, I've got several pianos, and a piano VCA, I've got Eric Whitacre choirs, choir VCA, I've got a drum kit VCA, I've got a couple of basses, a bass VCA, I've got electric pianos, I've got some soft synths, I've got audio tracks set up for electric guitar and acoustic guitar, each one with a VCA. I have some audio tracks for my live synths, as I have quite a few analog synths in my studio and a VCA. Then I've got my chamber strings VCA, Albion strings VCA, and then some effects strings, Crowhill, Heaviosity, Olafur Arnold's, and Spitfire Symphonic Strings Evo, and then a VCA for those. Then below that, all of these blue tracks, you could see by the icon here, these are all audio tracks, and these are where everything is routed to for stems. And then I've got my groups. So if I want to see my wins, very easy to see all my wins, just like that. And the way I did that in Pro Tools, let me hide these again, is this has been highlighted, and then I hold down Control and click on the dot there, and they're all visible. If I want to make all of these active, I just make them active. And now all my wins are active. So that's pretty quick. And then if I want to select all of these and hide them, just click there, hide and make inactive, and they're gone. Oh, I need to see my click. Boom. So typically if I was going to write something, maybe I would start off with my piano. I would bring that in, and I would also bring the VCA in at the same time. I would make both of these active. I would just reassign that there, and I'm good to go. I can start writing. And then if we go to stems, Control, right? These are all active. I don't deactivate these. And if I play the piano, you will see in the piano track here, audio. And the way I've got these set up is I've got input monitor so that I can hear the input at all times, and I've got them all solo saved. And then these tracks are all routed through a print track so that I can make a quick mix for my clients. And what I will do when I'm done with a cue is I will make a stem mix, and then that will go off to the person who's going to be mixing this project. That's pretty much the way I work. Let's say I've got a flute section, right? And I want to add alto flute because I don't have it in my template. What I would do then is right-click here, and I would simply duplicate this and make sure that no playlists are duplicated. And then just rename this and go here, alto flute performance, and boom, I've got my alto flute. And then I would just purge all samples. Yes, that's another thing. All of these tracks, all of these instruments, let's say, I purged all samples for the ones that can be purged. That saves a lot of memory when you're opening things up. Unfortunately, the Spitfire audio instruments, you can't purge. You can remove articulations. So, for example, you can go here and you can remove the articulations you don't need, and that saves some RAM, but it's not as slick as the contacts purging. So that's how I've got this set up. All of these are routed, and I actually took a tip from Christian Henson here, and that I've got shorts and longs for the high winds, shorts and longs articulations for the low winds, brass, the same thing with the strings. I've got low orchestral drums, high orchestral drums, cymbals, pitched percussion, piano, choir, drum kits, bass, electric piano, synths, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, high strings, short high strings, long low strings, short low strings, long, and a separate one for FX strings. In the FX strings stems, what I would typically have in there are long evolving string sounds, such as you'd find in the Olafur Arnold's Evos or in some of the Heaviosity stuff, not extended articulations such as Bartok Pitts or Colenio. Those would go in the regular short strings. Let's take a look and see how this works. All right, so here we have a track, a cue that I've been working on for this project. Let me make all these tracks bigger, and you can see that we've got our winds up here, we've got our winds VCA, and everything is color-coded and in the same order that you'd find an orchestral score, or close to it, right? And we can go through all this stuff in a second, but you'll see that there are quite a few tracks. Let's see, we've got what looks to be 73 tracks, and that I can see that that VCA is not open. So that means there's probably about 67 instrument tracks, and that's plenty. You really don't need to have, 500 tracks open, and I can just scroll up and down very quickly to get the entire session And for me to see what the sounds are, I look over here in the tracks window. So let's say that I wanted to get this Abbey Road Winds, and that becomes highlighted, right? And then I can just look at that. So I'll play a few different sections from this track and we'll solo things out, and then we'll talk about computer usage, and then we'll render some stems. We'll play it from somewhere in the middle. Now, if I wanted to play the same thing and just hear what my winds are doing, I can just hit the winds VCA. And let's say I wanted to do the same thing and just hear my brass. Or if we scroll down and I wanted to hear what my pitched percussion is doing. And I wanted to hear how that fit in with my pianos. Or if I wanted to hear my choirs. And I use the Rhodes as a sort of a sub bass, and I'm using the Scarby Rhodes here, which I love, the EP88S. Got it set up to my Herbie Hello Butterfly sound, and I could just solo this. And that works out really well. And you can just do that for all the different sections. So it's really quick, easy to navigate, and you just have the instruments up here that you're using. You don't have to scroll up and down 500 tracks to try to find a particular instrument. And for me, I can just read everything very easily here because I don't know what these are. I know that this is the brass, but I don't know what the individual instruments are. I don't have to have everything zoomed so that I can see the names of these, which means more scrolling, right? So just for playing things in, I can just activate that really quickly if I know what it is. So let's say I wanted to play something on the orchestral snare. I highlight that, and then boom, we're ready to record that. As far as making stems go, I would just record enable all of these tracks. I think there are like 18 stems, something like that, which is manageable because some of these won't have any sound on them, and I can get rid of them because I didn't use any of those instruments. Okay, and then I can start, let's say at measure 0, enter, hit record. And you could see the tracks being populated by waveforms. And then I'm ready to go. Send this off to get mixed. Now, the other thing to note is that I am printing reverb. I don't normally do that if I'm working on a jazz tune or one of my jazz funk tunes. I use sends and aux tracks, but with this, I'm just printing out the way I want to hear it. And so, for example, I'm using the Crow Hill concussion percussion in this particular bit right here. And that's the dry sound. And since I'm using a lot of Spitfire audio recorded in Air Studios, I've got the Spitfire Air reverb, and that helps these things to blend in a little bit more. So that's pretty good. And some of these other bits, I'm not really adding reverb because I'm using the ambient mic, the tree mic. There's plenty of reverb on this stuff. And at the end of the day, if the engineer wants to add some more reverb, he can add it in on the stems. I do have some reverb on some of these things. Like I've got these string runs right here. And so those are City Strings runs recorded in a different room. I want to make them a little bit wetter. So I'll insert a reverb right here, which, as I've said, I don't typically do that in other things. And I certainly don't teach that to my students. But for this kind of a project, I'm finding more and more that inserting reverb on some of these tracks and just recording it saves me time at the end. I make a decision and go with it. The other thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to bring in the system usage here. And let's start this from where it's pretty thick. That's pretty full. I was only using about 25, 26, 27% of the system. My memory is at 16%. This is an M2 Ultra Max Studio with, I believe I have the maximum amount of RAM, whatever that is it 128 or 196 or something like that, gigabytes. So I'm really, really efficient here. So that's a quick look at how I use templates when I'm writing film music. When I teach on my YouTube channel, I don't expect anybody to do exactly what I say. What I hope is that I put stuff out and people can pick ideas and incorporate those ideas into ways that help their own personal journey, their own personal workflow. Anyway, I've been Pete Calandra. Hopefully this has been useful to you. Please like, subscribe, share, leave any comments down below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.